Good afternoon, everyone. We are Elisa Chaves and Laura Trivino. We are professors of Didactic Social Science at the Faculty of Education Science of the University of Malaga. Bonjour, nous sommes Elisa Chaves et Laura Trivino. Nous sommes professeurs de didactique des sciences sociales de l'Université de Malaga. We are going to present our research, which is part of an educational innovation project on ethical social literacy, activism, and citizenship for the didactic social science and artistic education of the University of Malaga. This research proposes a process of critical literacy and performance practice based on the application of categories that enable teachers in training to deconstruct their prejudices about feminism and propose their own educational resource for equal education. We have been working in this line of research for many years with many obstacles, among them a certain fear of introducing the feminist issue because students either ignore what the concept of feminism means or even have prejudices that are derived from the cultural social networks and the media for the rise of phenomena such as fake news or post-fascism. In this sense, we have to say that social networks influence negatively since 2017-2018. We are observing that they also have a positive influence. Due to the Me Too movement, students who closely follow the culture of social networks, media culture, singers, celebrities, they declare themselves feminists. The revolution of the Me Too movement has been a call to the feminist awakening of society. It was born at a time when women's rights were not advancing and continued to be violated in the judicial, economic, and political spheres. The reactions of the Spanish society to the controversial judicial process that have caused the agitation of the citizens, together with the awareness of gender inequalities, are the evidence that patriarchy is still alive in our society. In response to this, the last two strikes of March 8, 2018 and 2019 are evidence of a change in the perception of feminism and also of the empowerment of women towards their visibility and the conquest of their rights, as well as of the awareness of inequality, the abuse of patriarchal power, and all types of male violence to which they are subjected. Still, recent research by Bohan and Kroko suggests that gender remains a secondary issue, compounded by the persistence of traditional approaches in the field of education. It is for this reason that the Me Too era is presented as the ideal opportunity to place feminism as the backbone of discussions on relevant social issues in the classroom in order to develop critical thinking of our students. In this context, it is necessary that future teachers of early childhood and primary education receive solid feminist training in the field of the education for citizenship and human rights, since they have a key role in contributing to the development of a future egalitarian, democratic, and critical citizenship. However, this goal is not easy to achieve, given the obstacles that arise when the feminist issue is introduced in the initial training of teachers. The purpose of this study is to expose didactic experience that bring us closer to the reduction of obstacles, mostly related to prejudices resulting from ignorance about what the feminist movement entails and how fake news and post-male chauvinism and post-fascist currents interfere in adopting a perspective that has the honorable aim of recognizing equal rights between women and men. So, methodology and development. During the 2018 and 2019 academic year, two didactic experiences were developed designed for feminist training in the education for citizenship and human rights subject of the degree in primary education and the degree in early childhood education. So to do this, we opted for a research methodology based on didactic engineering proposed for the teaching of mathematics. Following this methodology, the phases determined for the experimental process of didactic engineering consist of the four ones determined by Article. So, preliminary analysis phase, design phase and a priori analysis of didactic situations, experimentation phase, post-analysis and evaluation phase. Preliminary analysis phase. So, this phase starts from the conviction about the convenience of beginning by analyzing the feminist identity of the future teachers, their conceptualization of the term, and their knowledge of the implications of gender socialization. 100 of students answered affirmatively in the questionnaire that they consider themselves feminists. This fact represents a notable advance compared to previous years, in which on a regular basis, a part of students affirmed that they did not identify themselves as feminists for conceptualizing feminists from a patriarchal and equivocal perspective, assimilating it to the defense of the superiority of women over men. However, in the following question, in which they were asked to justify the previous answer, 90% of students present a clear conceptualization of feminism, and 9% make their feminist identify conditional on the understanding of feminism as the defense of equality between men and women, from which it follows that they manifest an ambivalence about the label feminism and suffer from a confused notion about feminism, contaminated by the mistaken concept of patriarchal society that invites rejection for having negative connotations, for example, hatred of men, lesbians, and abortion. The next question about whether they had observed any type of sexist discrimination throughout their lives, 27% of students state that they did not appreciate any discriminatory experience. 60% answer affirmatively when asked if they thought it would be less likely for them to reach their goals for being women. Out of the 40% who did not consider themselves to be in an inferior position, 21 demonstrate in their responses a high confidence in the current existence of equal opportunities. Slightly less than half of the negative response, 18% did affirm that they were aware of the sexist inequalities in today's society, but state that they were not affected by them due to their family environment or frames. They were asked to define the term feminacy in order to assess their knowledge and conceptualization of feminism. It is striking to note that only 27% of students understand the term as derogatory construction, coined by the patriarchal society to discredit feminism. Faced with these definitions, 72% debate between various interconnected and erroneous conceptualizations. 38% defined by radical feminists, 18% described as the struggle for the rights of superiority of women, of men over men, 12% links it with hatred of men, 9% defines a position against feminist principles, 3% link it to vandalism, 1% consider it the inverse equivalent of male chauvinism. Finally, 1% think that it defines women relate to fascism. So design phase a priori analysis of didactic situations. Next, the didactic engineering process was implemented in two groups of compulsory subject education for citizenship and human rights, developing a qualitative research methodology based on the case study. The group of the degree in primary education developed the project From Badly to Kindly projects, de malamente a buenamente. Group E of the degree in early childhood education carry out the projects From Fairy Tales to Empowered Women, de cuentos de hadas a mujeres empoderadas. So, the process of literacy, critical and practical performative is initiated through cultural artifacts from mass culture, for example, the video clip Malamente by Rosalía, and for traditional fairy tales depicted in classic Disney films, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and Beauty and the Beast, and are completed with audiovisual productions that propose counter-narratives both for the video clip and for the cinematographic films. So, for example, in this project From Badly to Kindly, we can observe production of seven video clips: Under the Glass of Equality, The Maid's Life, The Reality Behind the Screen, Sisterhood for Empowerment of Women, Shared Culture, If I Were a Boy, Chain of Favors. So, relevant social issues in these productions: empowering of women, gender violence, religious education, cultural appropriation, media culture, bullfighting, education of boys and girls. So, I would like to show this example, Sisterhood for Empowerment of Women. So this group decided to show a topic based on sisterhood for empowerment of women. This is the counter narrative based on Malamente. So the Cuentos de Hadas a Mujeres Empoderadas project, From Fairy Tales to Empower Women. So you can observe 9 fairy tales. Cinderella doesn't want to be a princess. Cinderella and her sisters, Free Cinderella. Snow White, the influencer. Snow Violet and the Civil Lies, the magic mirror of self-love. Aurora's awakening, dreaming, the beautiful awakening. In the degree in early childhood education. So, relevant social issues in these productions: feminism, ecofeminism, disability, ethnic, sexual and gender diversity, sorority, social utopia, activism. So, thirdly, experimentation phase. All this was carried out with a third process, which is the experimentation phase, in which the students have the opportunity to see and debate on the rest of the classroom partners' work. And finally, post-analysis and evaluation phase. The results are very positive and successful, since we meet students whose worldview has been changed through this experience, expanding and deepening notions of feminism. Their way of thinking will now determine their teaching practice. We should not leave it only in the critical phase, in which students criticize the audiovisual story, but we should also make teachers have their own audiovisual resources, their own proposal, not to leave everything in the hands of media culture. Conclusions. The resounding affirmation about the feminist identity of students that make up the simple object of this study represents in itself an important advance, because it reveals a development of the awakening of the feminist consciousness of the future teachers of early childhood and primary education. However, it is true that 9% of students do not present a clear feminist conceptualization, are seen contaminated by a patriarchal and equivocal perspective, assimilating it to the defense of the superiority of women over men. A considerable percentage of them, 72%, present the degree of critical reflection necessary to detect various situations of sexist discrimination in their own life experience. As teachers of social science, we have been seeing greater acceptance and identification as feminists by future teachers. This fact would have been unthinkable from our teaching experience 5 years ago. Clearly, this feminist awareness does not come out of nowhere, but from the influence of mass media and social networks, where feminism has occupied a large part of this space in recent years. It has achieved the dissemination of the feminist movement, whose priority objective is the equality of rights between men and women. There are those who think that feminism is a fashion or a commercial phenomenon, but the truth is that until now, capitalism was linked to patriarchal ideology, and it reached everywhere through media culture. Why not see it as an opportunity and not a rejection? Media culture also educates, and we cannot ignore that. To a large extent, it has achieved the objectives that many of the feminist teachers wanted to hear in our classroom. Yes, I am feminist. I am a feminist. This does not mean that the goal is achieved. The recognition of plural feminism is still a long way from being understood, and the advance of post-male chauvinism endangers the consolidation of feminist identity. Proof of these are the results of the question about what future teachers understand about the term feminazi. 72% of students define feminazi from the patriarchal perspective. That is why we propose an education for citizenship that trains students in feminist theory. Both the Malamente, a Buenamente project, and the Cuentos de Hadas, Mujeres Empoderadas project were intended to contribute to research on the teaching of social science and reflection, on proposals that can improve the training of future teachers under the premise of generating practical, creative, and critical knowledge in future early childhood and primary school teachers. Si vous avez besoin de plus d'informations, voici nos emails. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention. Thank you very much for your attention.